Central Florida. You're listening to the most electrifying show in media. A neighbor's choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gornoski. So glad to be with you. And we are live once again, a Friday. Hope you're doing well out there as we head to the weekend. Hope you are going to surround yourself with positivity and you're not going to have fools and losers draw you down into their dark, stupid, little envy-driven ways. That's what so much of the social media ghetto does to people. You get people who are just looking to draw you into their annoying, low resolution, envy-driven mindset, trying to draw you into feeling despair like they feel, or feeling resentment or jealousy or whatever it is. So much of that is what you see in our media today, and you see it in the social media world too. And our show is trying to cut through that and actually talk like adults about what actually needs to happen in the world without being emotional drama queens like you see so much of online today. Joining me now to talk about some of the big ideas that we are always pointing at and looking at on this program is someone who's a media ecologist, someone who has been talking for a long time about the need for an energy revolution to free us from tyranny. We have with us James Martinez. How you doing, sir?
Hey, how's it going? Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it's great having you back on, and it's great to have you. I know you're very busy with a lot of different projects going on, but I wanted to have you on to talk about and illustrate a point that I've been trying to help our audience see along the way through the years, which is that none of the tyranny that we are subjected to, I mean, we hear about different indignities every day. The media is now, for example, starting to finally announce that, oh my goodness, there's something behind these products that everybody's been forced to take. Oh my goodness, CDC is going to now look into the relation between them and strokes. And, there's just about 200 other diseases that they need to be looking at as well. But it's starting to come out more and more mainstream that public health has failed folks. And then you hear about Bill Gates and others wanting to pump mRNA vaccines into livestock so that those who are smart enough to eat a meat-centered diet in terms of their daily life are now going to have to be subjected to these mRNA clot shot type effects into their body. I mean, you just can't get away from these insufferable nanny tyrants. And you have been someone who's been talking about how freeing ourselves from the energy monopoly system is the biggest issue for decoupling ourselves from these insufferable tyrants. But could you get into this a little bit?
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to talk about that. In terms of strategic planning for the entire globe, the number one issue on the agenda is energy, right now especially. And in the early 2000s, there was something that was launched in Washington, D.C. called the Energy Conversation. The Energy Conversation was launched actually by the former director of the Energy Conversation in D.C. She happened to be a Deputy Secretary for the Navy at one point. Her name was Mitzi Wertheim. She launched something called the Energy Conversation in D.C., which has to do with the reorganization of how we use energy. Now, it's the most important part because many of the people that were associated with this, including the names that everybody have heard of, high-profile names for starters. One of the people that was involved with this was James Woolsey, who was, as everybody knows here, director of CIA. Also was and the other gentleman who's since passed. Both of these people are very old now. This issue that's been going on in D.C. regarding the deployment of advanced technologies and our true capabilities has been going on behind the scenes since about 2005, because I've been in contact with people in D.C. who were involved at that time that already knew that we had significant capabilities in the energy sector that just were being suppressed and not being deployed to the public. Because the reason I've been behind and talking publicly about deploying such technologies is, for instance, cold fusion, otherwise known as LENR, is because it's the tip of, or the top of the pyramid, if we want to use that metaphor, of technologies that will, first of all, the most important part, it will realign our relationship with the planet and nature, but it will also be the ultimate equalizer for the whole world and put us in a different position of the power structures. So this is the big thing that's going on behind all the news. It's very hush-hush. I'm currently speaking to you from Europe, where I've been meeting with members of the press regarding certain announcements that are going to come out in the technology world and the energy sector coming up in the next probably 30 days or so. So there's significant changes, and I observe the news in Europe as well as in the U.S., and there's not enough people talking about our true capabilities in the energy sector, because from here in Europe, people are just being destroyed. Their energy costs are going through the roof. In some cases, they're increased 700%, and business are forced to shut down. People are liquidating. There's not people screaming in the streets about it, though. They're having private meetings behind the scenes and trying to reorganize their entire businesses and finances, and it's happening everywhere. And the public is not aware, really, truly aware of our energy capabilities at all. And I've been speaking to you and others in the U.S. press about the deployment of these technologies and the actual financing of them by the public. Because once you can handle your own energy and management of your own energy, now all relationships change. And this is what many have been calling for quite some time.
So the problem is, though, if you get government kind of controlling new energy revolutions, like you're talking about, low temperature nuclear energy, used to be known as cold fusion, that they can create patents and networks and oligarchs to create middleman conditions by which the public is not able to really reap the benefits. They've still got to be get metered, and they've still got to pay exorbitant prices because the technology is like controlled in a way that keeps it suppressed from being able to alleviate poverty and scarcity. How do we make sure this doesn't happen with this coming revolution of low temperature nuclear energy becoming more understood?
The public has to take complete control over it. I talk to people every day all over the world about it, from people that are in existing energy companies or people in the active or retired military sector, as well as other people that are watching what's really going on. And in order to take power of it, the public really has to force the issue themselves. And it's just my understanding, based upon the existing kind of cultural differences that we have, that any technology that ever hits the streets is always going to be stolen anyway. And that's as China's been doing that to us for years and everywhere else. So when such technologies get released, it's just by default that they will be back engineered and improved and so forth. And I'm not fighting that, actually. In fact, I feel that many of the technologies that I've discussed with you in public and private should just be given away to the public. They should be all the technical data should be given forward. And if they really wanted to save the planet, which is what they're lecturing everybody about and using that as cover for something else, we could actually do that. Those problems could have been fixed a long time ago. And everybody inside the military-industrial complex and energy sector, they know that. Most of what the public sees is a big show. The real tech has been hidden from them, and the people that have taken the time out to promote it, to discuss it. Everybody from John Bendini to Tom Bearden to Colonel Fletcher Prouty to Walter Bower to Peter Hagelstein to all these people that have been involved in the research and development of this stuff. They don't really get support because the public doesn't even know about it, and they should know about it. And now, especially, I think it's just human nature that when things are worst, people change, unfortunately, because people have been warning about what's happening right now for a very, very long time from multiple different communication standpoints, books, lectures, public speaking, and so forth. And now we're in a critical next step, which is going to change in February when ARPA-E announces its distribution of funds, shall we say, for the activation of some of these technologies that took place at the ICCF meeting that took place in Mountain View, California, which was basically showcasing the current status of cold fusion. I bring that one up, and I've said this to you before and to your audience before, that this is the most practical tool that we have of technologies, because it's basically the easiest to manufacture on a large scale, but it's using hydrogen as its energy base and water. And a lot of people, including your research guy, your scientific research guy that you've had there, he already knows this. But the public are too lazy to step forward and actually hold their kind of employed misleaders accountable for seeing to it that these things are brought up and discussed. And I hold the public accountable. People have to kind of look in the mirror on this, and they can't expect somebody else to do it for them, especially now, because we've been lied to so badly for so long on so many things that we've got to unlearn what we've learned and learn all the new stuff and capabilities that we do have.
So, like you mentioned, a lot of folks are not aware of these things, and I would say that the majority of the public does not even know what cold fusion is. So let's start from the basics. What is cold fusion? You've been talking about this technology for years. You've been interacting with different scientists and engineers in this space for a long time and trying to get the public to understand this. So as someone who's been trying to communicate what cold fusion is to the general public for many years, give us the rundown on what it is.
Well, cold fusion is the activation of a nuclear reaction at room temperature using a nuclear reaction, shall we say, using the elements of hydrogen and water. This is illustrated by the very old now, 1989 experiment that Stanley Pons and Fleischmann did, and they released that information at the University of Utah in 1989, and it was the biggest news story in the world. It was on the cover of every major magazine, and not soon thereafter, these guys' lives were destroyed. And they were destroyed because of a very gigantic amount of money that was lost in the nuclear world, a certain contract. So those guys' research and their whole kind of careers for a moment were destroyed. And anything disruptive in the energy world is often repressed. So most people have heard of cold fusion, but they pull up their computers and they go online and they see all this stuff, controversial this, controversial, but they don't actually do the research and see what's really going on or take the time out to read all the data that's been going on for the past 30 years. So there's a lot of exotic technologies that we've had capabilities of, because most people have heard of Nikola Tesla, and when they hear that name, they go, "Oh, that's the guy that had all these ability to electrify the entire planet, and we could have been running our engines on electricity back then," and so forth. But they don't realize that many of these technologies have been in development. The one I've followed specifically is cold fusion. Now, anybody that has seen the countless illustrations and everything from commercials to movies to documentaries. There was a documentary film called The Believers. I was one of the people in that and helped put that thing together before it was released as a documentary on what happened to Stanley Pons and Fleischmann and what were actually facing. And later on, after that documentary took place, 60 Minutes, many, many years ago, came out and went public about the capabilities of that technology. And not many people really responded to that. But they didn't react in the way that everybody should have. And they should have gotten all of the available capability of R&D and funding and so forth and put it into that type of research. But what's happened is this has been a very slow, repressed climb up a mountain to get to a capability where LENR can be used to heat a home and heat it way cheaper than anything else that exists out there, with very little infrastructure to do so. And something that would basically fit into your home, an existing water heater right now. Those type of capabilities we already have, and there's a scaling up procedure that's going on behind the scenes with that. But for the general person that's looking into this, I always tell people to go to something that's really easy and digestible to the general public, and that's for them to see a movie called The Saint that was made many, many years ago. I met the producers on it, and that covers the whole subject matter of what that is and why it's important and why so many careers and so many people have had to suffer dealing with the development of this, because it's been so repressed, and many people that have been involved with it have been had to deal with like intense criticism in the scientific community, because the nuclear world is a very, very elitist place, and there's massive amounts of money in it. But what does that do for the general person? Not much. So that's what I would tell people folks to do. There's plenty of websites to cover. There's one called coldfusionnow.org. That is a very good website. I launched that many, many, many years ago when I was talking about this subject on the radio. That can give up-to-date information about what's really going on in the field and what to expect in what will be a pretty major announcement in mid-February when the ARPA-E announcement goes out, at which time this will finally change the world, and people are going to have to realize that we do have the capability of creating excessive energy, excessive heat, as they say in the cold fusion world, and now they have to demand it, because they're not going to get it unless they demand it. I'm telling people right now, and I've told people off air, on air, and everywhere else, if you're going to invest in something like this, now's the time to do it, because once it reaches a certain point, you're not going to hear much. It's going to go black, and then it's just going to show up at certain locations. And later on, probably within the next 5 to 6 years, that's what's going to happen. I've met with lots of people in Europe, and they're aware of what's going on, and it's interesting. What's most important to a public person that's involved with the energy field, especially if they're a public person, they care more about their image than doing the right thing. I cannot tell you how many people I've run into who says, yeah, I'm really interested, but we don't want anybody to know we're involved with this tech. That's what they're worried about. They're more worried about the controversy surrounding it rather than the actual benefits. It has nothing to do with anything. It all has to do with their own personal public image and the way the public perceives them, which is an interesting thing. I keep seeing that over and over again, especially here in Europe.
So why is it the energy component of changing the energy, making it decentralized, is the most important thing for changing you said changing our relationships? Obviously, there's a lot to that, but as it relates to the toxic culture that we're in, where we're constantly being fed narratives that make us hate our bodies and hate our gender and hate our race and hate our neighbors for their race and hate our country and feel dependent and feel helpless. All these vampiric, horrific, negative vibes that we get from this current globalist regime. How is the energy revolution that cold fusion or other similar technologies properly released, how is that the big linchpin for freeing us from those things?
It's simple, because when you have over unity, which is a flashy term for saying and I'll say this for the general person, when you have more energy coming out of the wall socket than going in the wall socket, that's essentially, in a nutshell, what cold fusion is. And just that concept right there, for many people out there, that's science fiction, but it's actually, now it's science fact. So what that means is it alters the parameters regarding economics totally. It ends the scarcity-based economy entirely. And that's really what needs to happen at this point. We need to start thinking in an unlimited capacity energy and a non-friction based instead of friction based economy, and what the effects are going to do. I mean, I've had people that have simply tried to organize key people in key positions just to have the conversation that we're having. You'd think that would be of high priority. It once was, but it came and went pretty quickly, and it took place during George Bush Sr.'s tenure as president, when the energy conversation was initiated in Washington, D.C. And most people don't know about that. If they look up the energy conversation in Amazon books, that will come up. And that was a paper written by somebody that was involved in formulating all of that. There's some really big people involved with that wanted to get off of oil and go into a completely different sourced energy capability, which would ultimately change all relationships. Because when you're living in a abundance economy, it changes the structure of money, it changes the structure of relationships, it changes the structure and overall goals of everything it touches. And this is why, instead of introducing or bringing forth technology that's disruptive and gets in the way of people that are going to suffer potential losses, instead of that happening, a conversation would take place first, prior to that, before anything was released at all. That was a very difficult task, and there was a lot of big people involved in the energy conversation that took place around 2004. So when you have this new concept of an unlimited abundance type of consciousness, most people can't even think and hypothesize what that means, let alone understand what it's going to mean in the manufacturing world, in the ending pollution world, in the crypto world. I constantly am approached by people about crypto all day long, and I always respond, well, do you own the energy that makes that crypto? And they go, no. Well, you don't have anything then, because they can just shut the energy off. So what are you talking to me for then? And I just get the long stare, because they don't understand that crypto is an energy-based system. And that energy-based system, if you don't own it, and you're not operating it, you don't have anything in the first place, because people can just shut it off the wall. Or they can use an EMP strike, or there can be solar flares, or there can be a ton of other things that could stop all that. So people don't really think these things through at all. So there's many things and parameters that are going on right now, most of which are good and need to happen.
James Martinez, we're going to have you on another time to expand on some more deeper things next time. But I wanted to get this overview developed as we continue to touch the subject more and more in the coming months and years, and try to prepare the public for how to engage this and how to make their voices heard. So I appreciate your time. And again, where was that website for folks that want to get interested in the cold fusion subject?
I would tell them to go to coldfusionnow.org. It's one of the best out there. I know the people that put it together, and everything's there and current about what's really going on.
Thanks again for joining me.
All right. Take care, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.